Thanks once again for coming out on a Tuesday night, our second lecture on a Tuesday night, so it's great to see everyone here. A couple announcements first regarding the guest lecture series. First of all is, I'd like to take this moment to thank a lot of people that have really helped me put this series together, and it's particularly for what I think has been a fantastic job on the posters. So Andreas Woollen has been preparing these, and I think you would have seen this one up this week for Francis Halsband. And then additionally, I'd like to thank him for this poster, which you will see going up all over now. Only half of this, actually. But basically, this is the entire series guest lecture for the spring, and this is the poster. And you'll see some large copies of this at the entrances, and we've also been working this year with thanks to Bob Gibbons on a hanging apparatus to display these posters from. And also, I just think it's fantastic that we finally got some good quality paper in our plotter. So you'll notice the difference that this one has. And apologies to Francis that hers wasn't so shiny and glossy. However, I think that really also is a tremendous advance that we've been able to make. So look for this, and you'll see we're only about halfway through the series, which means you've got a lot more to look forward to, both before and after spring break. Additionally, I'd like to make the announcement about upcoming lecture. The next lecture will be one of our Wednesday workshop lectures, so it's a week from tomorrow. That's Wednesday, March 3rd. It will have a workshop from 1 until 3, and at 4 o'clock will be a public lecture. And this is by William Land, and the lecture, as you can see, is on Feng Shui as a new age in design. And like the last one with Bruce Rice, it will be interactive. There will be some materials that will be asked of you to provide, drawing utensils, trace paper, as well as some work that you're either working on or some other information could be provided for you regarding ways that you can actually begin to see how the art of Chinese placement can influence your design. So that should be a really engaging session. And Luke Brown will be the student coordinator on that, and so he'll be around talking to a lot of you and trying to get your interest perked. Also, on that workshop from 1 to 3, there's a sign-up available, and that's in the architecture office on the 4th floor, right at the counter. So if you're interested in that and want to reserve your place, go ahead and do that. So again, 1 to 3 Wednesday will be the interactive workshop, and 4 o'clock will be the public lecture for our second Wednesday afternoon guest lecture. And then the last person I just want to thank is Tim Shaw upstairs, who's been helping with the visuals and been here for every one of the lectures and make sure the slides drop when they're supposed to and that you can hear us and everything else. So that's great. And yeah, it's appropriate to give them a round of applause. And then last, I'd like to turn it over now to our faculty host for our evening's performance lecture, Wes Jantz.
Hi. John Emmons was an individual important to each of us. He was president of the Ball State Teachers College in the late 1960s, when it was decided that the College of Architecture and Planning would be located in Muncie at Ball State. It can be argued that this decision turned the Teachers College into the university we know today. One imagines Emmons working among conflicting parties, seeking agreements on behalf of future professors and students, reconciling differences with state legislators, adjusting the visions of teachers at the Teachers College, giving of himself for the greater public good, accommodating. As Professor Tony Costello brought to my attention this morning, The building on this campus that we know as the Emmons Auditorium is formally named the John R. Emmons College Community Auditorium. This distinction seems important, suggesting Emmons' ability to respect both the university's past as a teacher's college and its future as a beacon of enlightenment and learning within the greater community. The John Emmons Distinguished Professorship rotates among the university's 7 professional schools. Under its auspices, distinguished professionals are brought into our university community to teach, conduct research, and practice. Our college has hosted a number of such notable practitioners and distinguished professionals, including the landscape architects Ian McCarg, Kenny Helpind, and Bob Scarfo, the planners Constance Perrin, Ed Stone, and Dwight Merriam, and the architects Malcolm Holtzman, Juan Banta, and the firm of Weiss, Seeger, Hickey, and Weiss. This semester, it is running outside in cold weather. Excuse me. This semester, it is our good fortune to have the architect Francis Halsband join our college as one of 2 Emmons Distinguished Professors. Simply put, Miss Halsband and her partner Robert Clement are doing all kinds of great projects for all kinds of people in all kinds of interesting places. The firm R.M. Clement and Francis Halsband Architects was founded in New York in 1972. They have received 38 design awards, including 4 National AIA Honor Awards, and the 1997 Architecture Firm Award, the highest honor the American Institute of Architects can confer on a firm for consistently producing distinguished architecture for a period of at least 10 years. The firm also was awarded the 1998 New York Chapter AIA Medal of Honor. Ms. Halsband is chairwoman of the 1999 AIA Committee on Design and has been a commissioner on the New York Landmarks Preservation Commission, Dean of Architecture at the Pratt Institute, and president of the AIA's New York chapter and the architecture lead of New York. She has taught at UC Berkeley, Columbia, Penn, Rice, Harvard, Virginia, and at Ball State. Ms. Halsband and Raj Bar Kumar are serving as Emmons Distinguished Professors this spring term. Last week, Bar Kumar gave a lecture titled Design Excellence and Social Responsibility. Coordinated by Professor Costello, the distinguished professors are teaching a graduate studio and an interdisciplinary seminar called Sustainable Communities, Issues, Concepts, and Solutions. Halsband and Bar Kumar are designers working at the very top of their profession, and they are here together, teaching, talking, designing, questioning. Please join me in welcoming Emmons Distinguished Professor Francis Halsband to the College of Architecture and Planning.
I'm going to use this one. Thank you. Okay. And the slide control, right. There'll be 5 minutes while we work the controls here. Okay, we're finished. I'm delighted to be here, and I'm delighted to be here because the more people I meet on this faculty and the more students that I meet, the more I feel that this is one of the schools that has got it right. And I think that you have got it right. It's cheer. Right? I think you have got it right because there's a tremendous sense in this school of reaching out to the community and being connected to what some of us call the real world. And I think that makes the school into a place which is truly about the real world as well. And I've always known what Tony Costello has been up to, and tonight I had dinner with Wes Jans, and he was talking about all the studios he's been doing in which actual students go out and do real things in the real world. He told me that his students were the only students present at an important international conference on courthouse design in Toronto last year. Now I know about that conference because I was thinking, oh my God, do I have the time to go? I should really be there. But but there were no other students there. There are some of us who would right now give our right arms or our eye teeth or any of those important parts that you need so that we could actually do real courthouses, because there's a tremendously exciting program going on right now called the Design Excellence Program, in which the GSA, the federal government, is really looking for really good architects to make a difference in federal architecture. So what? So you're all here in Muncie, so what? Well, so what? At least 12 of you or 15 of you or however many were in that studio suddenly have an idea about exactly what it is that all the rest of us all over the United States are trying to figure out how to do. How can we do better courthouses? How can we be part of that scene? I think that I even seem to remember that Marv Roseman once took all the students to the Society of Home Builders convention. This is an outrageous idea for students to actually go someplace and talk to people that are building things. This isn't happening on the East Coast. I can assure you that on the East Coast, architecture students stay within their walls, just talk to other architecture students, just talk to other architects, and have really not the foggiest idea of what is going on outside. So if there's one thing that I believe in, and that long list of all the things I've accomplished, I believe that the worst thing I can do is spend all my time in my office, for the same reason that I believe the worst thing you can do is spend all your time in school, because there's only so much you can learn from other architects, or there's only so much you can learn from examining the contents of your own head. I mean, all the really inspiring things, all the really wonderful ideas come when you as architects connect to people in the world. That's my version of reality. I also think it follows from that I have never believed that there was any such thing as student work, and I think there's even less student work here than there is at other schools. And what I mean by that is that any design work, which is an encounter with a real problem in the world, is real work. It's not student work. And anybody that has an idea, whether it's an idea that follows the codes, whether it's an idea which is buildable, whether it's an idea which is financially feasible, not important. What is important is that it's an idea that changes how all the rest of us think about things. I'd like to think that I have some ideas once in a while, and just because I actually get paid to do this stuff doesn't mean that I don't have ideas. But I think that really we are a community of people trying to figure out together what is the right thing to do, and we're a piece of a much bigger community, namely that whole world, and we're all collectively trying to figure out what to do. So with that kind of preamble, I thought that what I would talk about tonight is really just a little bit of sort of a slice of life of what's going on in our office right now. Last year I talked about an architecture of accommodation, by which I meant that as architects we have to be aware of all of the real world factors that enter into our work. We have to really understand what is history, what is the culture, who are the people we're working for, what is the site that we're working on, which way is the wind blowing on this site, what's growing out of the ground, who's been here before, and because they've been here before, or because there are a couple of hundred years of people that have lived in this place, what can we learn from their experiences so that we're not just starting over again? I think all of those things suggest that what we do as architects is try and accommodate all of those issues and all of those thoughts and all of those passions that our clients or our culture bring to us, and it's constantly changing. You can't predict. You can come back and do the same project 5 years later and have it be a totally different thing. So that's, in a very short form, kind of what I talked about last year. We're still doing it. We still have an architecture of accommodation. We do not change what we do we don't change, how can I say this? We don't change how we think about things. Everything we think about is always new and always different, but we're not, we're not thinking about architecture. I guess that's what it is. Robert and I and all the people in our office don't give talks about the theory of architecture. Really, all we can do is talk about what we're doing. There's a famous medieval saint who was said to be able to envision the entire world in a hazelnut. What that means, I guess, why am I telling you that, is that for us, focusing in on smaller and smaller and smaller things with greater and greater and greater intensity seems to be the key to designing something which could, last forever, or at least last for 5 years or something. And so it's just our way of working is by looking into very tiny things and seeing how they generalize out. There are certainly other architects that work in other ways, and I'm sure they've stood here, and I would love to be one of them, but I'm just not. It's just how I work. So when Malcolm called up and said, well, we're going to have an exhibition of your work, we walked around the office and we looked at what was still loaded onto the server, and we said, well, we're just going to plot out 4 projects that are still on the server right now. They haven't been archived. So that's the scientific method by which we determined what to send out here for the exhibition. And they have the nicest stuff on the server too, and the most complete stuff. So those 4 projects are really the basis of what I'm going to talk about, because maybe with any luck you've looked at the exhibition, or maybe you will go out and look at it after this talk, and it all makes some sense. I'm going to talk about it, I guess, maybe from biggest to smallest. I'm not really sure. I can't even tell you how I did that. The first project is a federal courthouse that we did get as part of this design excellence program, which was a tremendous thing in our office. We have an office of about 35 people, which in New York is it's kind of a small office. It doesn't count. One day, and we had never done work for the federal government because we imagined that we needed a bigger Xerox machine so we could turn out, the piles of paper that the government requires. And the federal government, in the form of the GSA, has made a tremendous change in how they look for architects now. They no longer look for people that have already done it before or that have tremendous Xerox machines. In the Design Excellence Program, they simply ask you to send in a few pictures of what your work looks like. Before that, they never even asked what it looked like. They just asked, have you met budgets? Have you met schedules? And so we sent in some pictures of our work, and all the other architects in America sent in pictures, and then we interviewed against some of the biggest firms in America, and we got this job. It's a $130 million job. It's a very big project for our office. So I'm going to show you that and try and explain to you what some of the complications of that are. And then a very different set of circumstances go with a public school in New York that I'm going to talk about, and then a television studio in Orlando, and then an office interior, which is really rethinking the way that we do work in offices. So let's see what happens. Lights, push button, start. Yes, okay. Turn this one. Whoop. Okay. We're in Brooklyn, New York. Oh, no pointer. What a disaster. Well, all right. You all know that that's Manhattan, and you can see the Brooklyn Bridge, and the building we're talking about is over in the corner, the little corner of Brooklyn that shows. And on your right is a picture of this building as we found it. It's a 500,000 square foot building. It was built as a courthouse first in the 1880s. You can see the piece in front is from the 1880s. And then in the 1930s, it was expanded with that huge piece in back. Like all courthouses of its period, it was a post office on the ground floor and courtrooms upstairs. There's one of these in almost every city in America right now, and always with that same formula. It was the federal building in what was then the city of Brooklyn. It was right before the Brooklyn Bridge. Oh, no, I did that wrong. Oh, here we go. All right. Just to provide a little context, this map of Brooklyn about the turn of the century shows that there was the bridge, and there was the start of all of these what were then elevated subway lines, and the center of Brooklyn, without a pointer, this is hard. You can see the city hall on the bottom, and the courthouse was the next bump up from that. But the center of Brooklyn was a very busy place with streets very close together, and the courthouse was one little building in the midst of those streets. So that was 100 years ago. Because of urban renewal in the 1950s, all of the elevated trains were taken away, and all of the green space that you see on this map was added around, and the Brooklyn Civic Center was created around, is there a stick? Who's going to, you're getting a stick. Okay, terrific. All right, well, the courthouse is in the middle of that picture. And all of the streets were made wider as access to the Brooklyn Bridge and Manhattan Bridge. And you can see on the right that the building, again, as we found it 3 years ago, is now surrounded by parks, although it was never meant to be seen in that way. So that's our site, a building which was 500,000 square feet, a landmark, empty, and in downtown Brooklyn. The next piece of information about all this, here it is then, and there it is now. The next piece of information about all this is that courts operate so completely differently today than they did 100 years ago, that there was a real question about whether you could put a courthouse into a courthouse. It might seem obvious, but in fact, because of new security requirements, which, well, the one piece of it that I can explain is that today we have 3 different circulation systems in courthouses, so that the public walks through and just sees each other. The judge is able to take his own elevator up from his own car and get into the courtroom without seeing anybody. People who are about to be tried come up through yet a 3rd circulation system. So just the simple fact of there needing to be 3 different circulation systems through a building means that it might not be that a courthouse from yesterday could be a courthouse today. This just explains some of the history of this building. You can see the very first building actually in 1891, and then it was expanded while it was still under construction in 1892. In 1916, a big piece of space for a post office where the trucks came in was added. Then you can see 1933, and then you get a little preview of what we started adding to it as we looked at this project. And here's the section through the existing building, and you can see as it is today. When 1933 wing was added, that was right before air conditioning, and all of the offices were built into relatively narrow building in which everybody had a window. Apparently those are the good old days. We don't build like that anymore. But every office had light in that building in 1933. The project we were given, we've quickly found out required 600,000 square feet of space, and there was only 500,000 existing. So the first issue we needed to look at very quickly was how to add space into this building, and these were just some very early studies of how to do that. What we learned that was really wonderful about the old building is that it had an atrium, you can see it in yellow, with a skylight on the top, and so light came down into the center of what was otherwise a very deep building, and then there were big courtrooms all around the atrium. And people would come out of the courtroom, stand on the balconies, and look into the atrium. Not that different from the Harry Cobb scheme for the Boston courthouse that's just opened this year. Although there's half an atrium and there's Boston Harbor on the other half. And so we looked at ways of adding space, which are all these blue blobs, so that we could preserve the sense of light into every room. We also, on the right, we also did a whole series of stacking diagrams to figure out how to keep the post office in the building with the courts. The irony of the post office right now is that the courts were terrified of the post office because they were terrified that somebody would bring a bomb in through the post office. And the post office was terrified of the courts because they were afraid that somebody would come in and there'd be a shootout. So neither one wanted to be in the building with the other one. So that was a set of studies about where to put everybody. And then we looked at the whole building devoid of program and just tried to understand how to set a circulation system into the building that made sense so that people could find each other. And in fact, this you can see the two different colors are the two sets of circulation systems that we looked at adding in. And then we organized the building so that the atrium once again becomes the center of all of the courtrooms. And then we added, almost impossible without a pointer, in the U-shaped part of the building, we added in a whole new, oh, there we go.
They're also giving you one.
Fantastic.
I can hold it for you.
Crash. Here we go. No, this is just what I need. All right. How did Vincent Scully do this? Okay. That whole inner ring is a whole new layer of offices that we added into the building so that everybody still had, every office still has light, and the old shape of the building is still as you look across the courtyard, you look across at the old atrium and across to the city of Brooklyn. So the building gets wider, but not so wide that everybody does not still have light and windows. This is the atrium in the good old days, and that's the atrium as we found it. We discovered from looking at the old photographs that there had originally been a glass floor which separated the courts upstairs from the post office below, and there had originally been a skylight which let light into the whole thing, and the light would filter through that lay light into the very lowest level. So that seemed to be one of those things from olden times that was very much worth keeping and bringing back. So in fact, we did exactly that. We designed a new skylight that you can see there that takes the place of the old one and is very definitely designed as a new element. It is not. It's not a an antique Victorian skylight. It's all held together with stainless steel tensile rods. And then this is the section through. And then we replaced the glass floor. I should say we brought back the glass floor. That in this case, it's now separating the court clerk's office, which is on the floor below, from the courts above. And by adding in the glass floor, we were able to create or recreate some of the security systems that are needed to keep different groups of people from going in different places. So here you can see both of these are below the new glass floor that separates the courts from the clerk's office. This floor is it's a bankruptcy court, and people are coming in and filing paper all the time. So this whole cage underneath is the paper filing cage. I guess is the best way to think about it. The next thing that we needed to think about in the atrium was what color is it? How do we set up a color scheme? If you've seen the drawing outside, you know that was a big deal to figure out. Much to my reluctance, we did some paint scratching. Somebody came in, and this is a magnified version of every layer of paint that was found in the building. Each layer was numbered, analyzed, and the color was described. And you can see on the right how some of that looked on the column capitals. I say that I didn't want to do this because what we found out was that the original color scheme was, kind of a little brownish. I mean, those are the original colors. That was it. It wasn't wonderful. On the right, you can see we're stripping off layers of varnish on the mahogany and trying to figure out what the original mahogany color was. We kept looking at this, and we weren't real keen on this set of colors, and we went back through the old correspondence of the original architect in 1891, and sure enough, there's a letter from the architect written to the Department of the Treasury, I guess then, in which he says, I'm having a lot of trouble with the painter. The painter has come up with colors which I really don't think are right. They're a little too brown. I think they need to be more in a more orange direction. I mention this because, of course, there's a whole world of people out there who are historic preservationists who tell you that the answer is simply restore the original paint color. And this is an absolutely clear case of where the original paint color was just the wrong paint color. The original architect knew it, we knew it, everybody knew it, and it really requires some judgment and not simply saying, oh, well, that's what was there before, so let's do that again. So I could give another lecture on how preservation is really designed, but let me tell you, it's true. Preservation is really designed. So our final analysis of the color scheme, and this is just a computer rendering, so it's still not quite right, but we believe that this is much more what the original architect was thinking after he got the first set of colors fixed. It's very intense. It's not, today we're into a much more pale and tasteful set of colors, but there it is, different shades of what I would call Tuscan reds and things, and there are the two skylights. Crash. This is one of the old courtrooms as we found it. There was actually a very beautiful kind of stone wainscot. It's some Tennessee mahogany marble. And you can see that the building has not been treated with what you would call respect through the years. So again, in the case of the old courtrooms, we tried to recreate as much as we could, but here's the security issue. It has to be possible for the judge to get from his chambers into the courtroom without seeing the public. And so we had to create this secondary line of kind of a shell within the room so that there'd be a passageway connecting all of the judge's chambers so that he could get there. And yet we were still trying to preserve some of the good qualities of the room. And so you can see in the rendering that we created this wood shell within the room, and then the shell has windows through which you can look out of the real windows, and you can have a sense of this shell being a new element in an old room, so you can read them both at the same time. And then these are the judge's chambers. We were very grateful to have lightscape programs. We had clients that didn't really understand drawings, like most clients don't, and so we were able to make renderings that really showed them what it would really look like. So in the case of the judge's chambers, that really was what I would call strict restoration. This is one of the places where we created an atrium. This is a waiting area outside of a new courtroom, and it looks out onto the stone wall of the 1891 building, which you can see on the right. And so this is a place where another new layer, a very thin layer of glass kind of intervenes in between an old wall and a new set of uses. And then this is a new courtroom, which it's a new courtroom that's skylit from above, and then this is the place where you look out across at the stone wall of the old building. And then I told you at the very beginning that we were very concerned about this sort of transformation of the neighborhood from a place with tiny narrow streets to a place with a wide open park. And so the last thing that we proposed was that the entire length of the side elevation of the building be converted into a continuous flight of steps, so that there was a grand scale element that would greet the park. It also solves handicapped access problems because you can come in at grade at the top and then just walk along to the door you need to get into. And then all of the different doors to the building, the different functions of the building are tied together by one 400-foot long flight of steps that creates a place opposite the park where you can sit and look. Again, not something that was ever part of the original architect's intentions, but the original architect was dealing with a different set of conditions. This is now actually in the distance. You were asking before. You were asking Wes. Up there is a proposed courthouse by Caesar Pelli. That's the other half of this project. We're all holding our breaths because Caesar's project just went out to bid and it was way over. And so now he's redesigning. And so we're hoping that in the next 2 weeks we will find a bidder out there who will pick the magic number. 135 million. And that this will be under construction by the summer. This next project is under construction now and will be finished in a couple of months. In fact, the students that are coming to New York could go to see this. Now we're in the Bronx, all outer boroughs projects today. The whole bottom half of this slide is the Bronx Botanical Gardens and Fordham University campus, and the whole top half is a kind of typical residential neighborhood in the Bronx, and we are building a public school right at the edge of the residential neighborhood where it meets this park and university, and you can catch a little glimpse of it over there. This is probably the most constrained project we have ever worked on. At the start of this project, we were given a 4-inch thick book of standards of how you build a school, and there's absolutely no room to maneuver. The slide on the right is a third grade classroom, and that's it. That's where every chair in that room goes. There's a closet, there's a sink, there's a place for the teacher to stand, there's a fixed square footage, you're given this book of standards, you're given the site, which is a little bit too small because now in the city of New York, the city won't condemn any sites that have housing on them, so that just leaves them with little gas station sites and things on the edge of things where they try and put schools. And then you have to try and figure out how to put all these little boxes onto a site. And you're not allowed to talk to the teachers. So in spite of my wish that we could communicate with people, we couldn't. So we translated all those little boxes into all of these little boxes, and that was the school program for a school of 600 students, K through 5. And we started looking at how you could fit those boxes on that long, skinny site. And the biggest question that came up was how to create a playground on the same site at the same time. And in this proposal, the entire site is covered with building. It's a very steep site, too, so there are two. This is the first ground level, the second ground level, a third floor, and in this one we said, let's use the whole roof as a playground. And in the one on the right, we said, let's make a 5-story building, and then you get to have a whole piece of playground at ground level. And those are the two extremes, and that was it. That was the range of possibility. And so out of that, we finally developed a kind of a halfway scheme in which we said there's enough room for a playground here on the southern corner of the site, which will get the nicest light, that left us with a remaining school site exactly that size. And you can begin to see the plans. So the school has got one entrance, actually this is the parents' entrance on the lowest level, and then there's another entrance for kids coming down from the neighborhood, which is way up there on the upper level. And the entire range of possibilities in this tiny, tiny site was that we figured out that we could take all of the special rooms, the art room, the music room, the library, and put them at the end of the building facing south, and that we could have the corridor open up facing south again, so that when you're in the building, you can look out the window, and you can in fact see all the way to Manhattan, and so that the special rooms and these special little corners. This is like aerobics here. Okay. Yeah, and this one little corner is a place where you can sit in a window and gaze out across the city. The gym is at the other end. You can see it over there, and that's it. That's the absolute simplest organization. No room for a single nook or a single cranny. There's also a net to gross ratio that you have to stick with, and if you don't stick with it, they don't build the school. So we were able to make this, here you can see these are all the little places where you can look out of a window at the end and gaze out to the city, and on the right you can see the second entrance into the school at the higher level. Oops, that was a mistake. Okay. And then these are two renderings that we had done to explain what the whole project was about. This is a neighborhood of all 6-story high brick tenements. They're either red brick or they're yellow brick. That's it. And so this building has a kind of a presence because it's bigger than the other buildings. It's longer and bigger than the other buildings. And then we developed a brick pattern which is based on the colors and textures of the brick in the neighborhood. And then inside of the building, again, there's a completely limited palette of materials. You are given what you can use, and the story is you can use tile inside. That's it. And so we developed a system of color coding for each floor. We said that each floor would have one dominant color, and then all of the other colors that we were able to assemble would be the secondary color on that floor. So we can't quite see it, but this is the green floor. So every classroom has its own green doorway, and then this classroom has orange tile set in next to the door, and then it has a kind of an orange welcome mat put out on the floor in front of it. The next green classroom has a blue door, and so on. On the floor above, you can see it's the blue floor, and so all of the other colors become accent colors, and the floor above that is a yellow floor, and so on. So with a kind of almost zero range of what we were allowed to do, we tried to make something that would be engaging for the kids. And this is it as of about 2 weeks ago, I guess. It's supposed to be finished this spring. Also, I won't even talk about the schedule. Very, very tight schedule. We designed the entire thing in about 4 months. It's getting built in almost less time. But you can begin to see the places in the hallway where you can look out, and the kind of way that the building addresses the park. And this is again you can see the cutout of the front door. And then this is the entrance at the higher level on the residential street. And then they're just starting to do some of this tile work, so you can begin to see what it's like. So even if you can't read, there's a hope that you could find your classroom in this place. And there you can see you can't imagine how hard we had to fight for that extra 50 square feet, so that when we got to the end of the hallway, there'd be a place where people could sit down and look out the window. Okay, from this very tightly constrained world, I'm now going to shift into a totally different place, a totally different scene. I'm going to take you to Orlando, Florida, to the Disney Wide World of Sports. And these two pictures, I think, for me, sort of summarize what's going on in the sports scene today. Sports is a little bit about live, but it's mostly about telecasting. This is an Atlanta Brave on opening day of spring training, and he's not holding a baseball bat, he's holding a microphone, and he's talking to a video crew who are sending the thing by satellite all around the world. Why am I showing this? Because on this site in Orlando, we're designing a television studio for ESPN, and the whole question of what is real and what is part of the world of television was one of the issues that we had to address, and the other issue we had to address is there is of course no form for a television studio. There's no right way to do a television studio right now. They've all been designed by engineers. This is just the site. It's winter in Muncie, so I thought I would show far more palm tree pictures than I really have any need to show. But next time you're in Orlando, the great, the engineering that goes into the grass in the Atlanta Braves field is worth the trip in itself. This is an enormous complex of sports fields that it's part of everything that Disney is doing in Orlando. And the imagery that they've set up for this entire place, which is designed by the architect David Schwartz, is kind of Southern Spanish colonial. So here are the too many pictures of palm trees, and just, it's just that's one set of palm trees. This is, we could all be there right now. The other thing that's interesting about this is that even though they have this site, this kind of creation of a place that never was, which is this sort of Spanish colonial thing, what you really see are these enormous light standards, and that's what tells you it's a sports field, that there's something so out of scale with the environment that it suggests there's something else up there. We were desperate for clues. We examine every blade of grass, and here we are in this place where there's nothing but palm trees that have all been moved in the week before. That was the All-Star Cafe. I think that was there last year. I don't even think it's there this year. So it's a kind of a transient world, at best, that we were locating a building in. Okay. And the one other thing I should say about this, before I cut out the palm tree pictures, is that this is a very hot place, and the arcades that are everywhere in this place seem to have a lot of meaning and seem to make a lot of sense. If you have huge numbers of people, they like standing around at arcades in very hot climates. So those are the two things we learned from this site. We couldn't learn anything about this fake Spanish colonial tribe, though we might. So we took away from it a kind of a high-tech imagery, and that arcades were a good thing. On this site, here's the amazing grass ball field again. We had to figure out where to put this. Well, I guess we were sort of given the site. We were given the site for the television studio in between the enormous parking fields and the ball fields. The television studio was a completely inward-looking thing, but everybody felt that since it was on a public site, there needed to be some piece of it that the public could see or enjoy or get some meaning out of. So a piece that wasn't really in the program, which is written by engineers, was what is that one element that it would be all right for the public to see that wouldn't badly affect the operations of the television studio. We developed a plan which we think could really work for a television studio. The ingredients of a television studio, in a word, there are great big boxes. Those are the red boxes there, which are actually studios themselves. All of the green areas are filled with engineering equipment that make the studios possible. Those are all of the different sets of control rooms. And then there's a huge number of production people that go with this with this studio, and they're all sitting in workstations here. And a typical studio, all of this is a kind of a rabbit warren, and everybody's running around, jumping over cables. And we were trying to figure out a way to make this into one big community. And what we finally figured out is that everybody should be sitting around one huge atrium. You can get a sense of where the atrium is by looking at the floor above, which is sort of an executive administration and production floor. You can see that the whole center of that is open, so that everybody working in the place can see each other. And when something really exciting happens, like somebody wins the the Indy 500, everybody can gather together and find out that that has just happened. This is where RPM Tonight comes from. This is the place. And so you can see here that we tried to create one enormous space that all 300 people working there could be part of. This space actually has daylight coming into it because the studios are enclosed volumes and they're completely dark. But there's nothing wrong with having people in these workspaces have some light. And you can see all these big banners hanging on the left, on the right. Then the question came up, what does this building look like? Disney is a fantastic client to work with. They run charrettes. Everything is done in charrettes. And they bring people out who just talk to you about what things look like. They won't sit still to find out how they work. And they were very much in love with this Spanish colonial place that they had created. And so we were trying to find out by making sketch after sketch after sketch what they felt a television studio on this site should look like. I say that because it comes as much from them as from us. And we were making the sketches, but they were reacting and saying, yeah, this is a place we could work. No, this isn't a place we could work. And so we started off with this very, kind of Spanish colonial thing. We had designed a building that could have any front on it. In this one we said, well, there's an arcade, and then everything is yellow stucco, and then there's some satellite dishes, because we were pretty convinced that satellite dishes were what told you that it was a television place. And in fact, in that one, we said it isn't even the dishes, it's the truck. And in this one, we said, well, the dishes are really major. And they said to us, well, in these, the dishes were sunshades as well as being functional. And we said, well, what are we going to do when dishes become obsolete? We're going to have a very silly-looking building. So we began to realize that the screens were the way to go. So out of all of these explorations, we came up with two dramatically different alternatives, because they asked us for two. They asked us to keep both ideas going. And so, in fact, in this one, we said, okay, it's Spanish colonial. That's what it is. And there's a frieze along the top of, great sports figures of the past, and there's a, clock tower or something at the end that looks just like these other clock towers. And then there's an arcade, and the public can come up. You can walk up to the arcade and look through these windows into a control room or into a studio if it isn't being used. And that was one set of images. And then the other one that we developed, we said, no, this building should look like it's made out of the things that sports stadiums are made out of. And so we proposed that there would be enormous lighting masts, just like the ones across the way. And we developed a whole front elevation made out of the kind of mesh that keeps the balls from hitting you when you're in a stadium. And you would look through layers of mesh, and it would provide both shade and a kind of sense of things moving across the front of the building. And that is the idea we are now developing. You can see there are 3 or 4 different layers of mesh, and there can even be different messages on the different layers. And as you walk through it, everything changes, and you have a completely different sense of the building as you're walking by. So we're hoping that this is the television studio of the future. We'll see. Okay, and then finally, a very tiny project which is for a management consulting firm that is trying to rethink the way that they do business and the kind of services that they offer people. And they're switching from management consulting to technology consulting. And they're switching from a place that looks like a law office to something else that looks like they're not really sure what it looks like. And they're very smart people. They're in the business of advising other people how they should structure their offices. But when it came to describing what they really wanted in their own office and how they really worked best, they didn't talk about having an office or having a desk, but they talked about how they did their best work, and they said they do their best work when they're home. And we asked them why that was, and they said, well, because at home they could close the door and they could be completely left alone. And at home they could go out and eat in between. When they got tired of really working very intensely, they could walk around and eat. But what they missed when they were home was talking to each other. And so two planning principles came out of that. That's them eating. That's what they do. They eat in the office. One was that there should be workspaces which were as tiny as possible and just completely tailored to the ergonomics of a human being, that everything should be within arm's reach, which means, in fact, that a workspace should be 75 square feet. Actually, let me go past this one. And so this first idea is that a workspace is small enough so you can sit in the middle and reach everything, that you could control your own lighting and your own heating in the workspace, just like you can when you're in a car, and that everything would be wired so you could plug in anything anywhere at any time, and that all of the surfaces would be whiteboards so you could write on everything all over. And the second principle that we developed was that any time you walked out of your office, you should be forced to confront some other human being. That informal interactions and kind of running into people by mistake are really what make it worthwhile to be in the office and not to be home. So the organizational principle was there's no redundant circulation. There's only one main street, and everything that you need that isn't in your office is on the main street. If you want to run a copy, you go out and use a copy machine on Main Street. If you want to hang up your coat, you go out and hang up your coat. If you want to find a coffee bar, you find a coffee bar on the Main Street. If you want to find your secretary or your assistant, she's on the Main Street. So everything that symbolizes and means community life is located on that one Main Street. And then what did they really want more than anything? They wanted an espresso machine because they could just sit around and talk to each other, and things would happen. They would interact. And of course, the other issue is that they're all tied together by technology. Everything is done by wire. So we made a couple of sets of drawings that kind of in this drawing, you can see that everything is centered around the server. Everywhere you are, you're connected to the server, and that's what makes the space possible. And the other ones begin to develop ideas of communal life. And we did this, again, kind of schematic drawing, which we said there are little neighborhoods of tiny little cubicles, which are offices, and then once you're out of these neighborhoods, you're in a kind of a big, irregular space where all of the things that you share as a community can be found. And then that finally turned into a plan in which you can see these tiny offices. Here's one office. In fact, you could work with a partner. There's a sliding whiteboard in between. This office has got a glass wall running along the whole front of it, and it's a movable glass wall. So if these people want to work together and they want to work together with these people, they open up their doors, and that means they're part of the world. This group of 4 people could work together by opening up their glass doors, or they could remain separate by keeping everything closed. And then there are these enormous spaces that cut through the whole place, which are communal places. When you come in the front door of this office, the first thing you see is the coffee bar and the espresso machine. And they said that's who we are. We are people who sit around together and have coffee. We created a conference room at the very top with sliding doors, and when there's no conference there, the doors will open up and you're part of one big space, which is part of that coffee bar. And then all of the cable that runs through this place runs through cable trays, so that you are not only literally reminded that the other system that ties you together is a wire system, but it's also possible to change cables every night, every morning, which is a lot of what these people do, trying out new computer systems and figuring out information technology systems for their clients. So here you can see the whole cable tray system running through. And then the cable comes down, and something that we finally decided that these were like media fins. So the cables come down through these fins and then go into all the offices or into all of the places where all the machines are. And here you can see another kind of version of this. We made all these drawings for them, and they were extremely nervous about moving out of regular-sized offices into very small offices. Actually, here you can see media fins connecting to machines. And so we set up a mock-up for them so they could actually try it out. We gave everybody a hard hat. We built some offices, and then we took everybody through and let them actually sit in an office and try it out. We had different light fixtures. They were able to pick out exactly the light quality that they thought they would like to have. They were able to pick out exactly the chairs that made it possible for them to work best, because we said to them, okay, it's ergonomically correct. You tell us which chair feels the most comfortable. And then they had a kind of a checklist as they were walking around. They actually said, I like this color palette, that chair, that light. This is how I want my office to be. And then this is just finished, so these pictures are still black and white. We don't even have color slides yet. But this is the end result of this place. As you come in the front door, you can see the cable tray going by overhead. It tells you something's up. And this is the beginning of this conference room with a sliding glass door. When there's no conference there, the door slides back, and the whole thing becomes part of the cafe. This is the espresso machine. People really do sit in here and plug into their computers and read their email out by the coffee pot instead of going back to their offices. And here you can see one of those sort of common machine areas. Everything is on wheels because who knows whether tomorrow's equipment will look anything like today's equipment. So all between these two media fins, you can keep refilling everything with different sets of equipment as you buy it. And then this is two of these offices with a sliding glass wall here, and you can see a sliding, well, you can't see it, sliding whiteboard wall there. So each person can set up his own environment every morning just by pulling walls closed or opening walls up, turning lights on, turning the thermostat up and down, plugging in his computer, and then deciding whether he feels like doing any work or whether he'd rather just walk outside and have a cup of coffee. And I think that's my last slide, so I think that's a sign that we should go outside and have a cup of coffee. Thank you.